Alrighty, welcome back everyone. It is LaughNgamez here. I'm back with another Starcraft 2 1 versus 1 bot AI cast. However, it is not just a 1 versus 1 or 1 versus 1. It is going to be a best of 3 between I think the two top Protoss bots, it's safe to say at the minute. We are going to be having Deimos taking on negativeZero, two incredible Protoss bots that actually have a lot of similarities, I'll say. They're both rather aggressive in the early game. They don't necessarily rush the economy or anything like that. However, then if the game does go long enough, they both do just boom up and take so many bases, which is why I think that this should be a fun one to see between these two. Now, Deimos and negativeZero are both incredibly darn good Protoss bots. I'm just going to go ahead and pull up their descriptions. Not that I think they both have significant descriptions. Yeah, Deimos just says, made with Ares SC2. It's a Protoss Python bot made by Team Ares. Created July 7th, 2024. Last updated January 6th, 2025. And then negativeZero, mind me, retired December 2022. That was a lie. And so to win without risk is to triumph without glory, Pierre Corneille. And it's a Protoss bot made in CPP Linux, last updated the 26th of January, May 20th, or pardon me, created the 20th of May 2021. So they've both been around for a little bit, and they're both incredibly fun to watch. I'm just pulling up, I'm not sure whether I've actually cast these two before against each other. I like to get an idea. I cast a lot of bot games, guys. I don't believe I've cast a negativeZero match against Deimos, so that's part of the reason why I have decided to go ahead and cast a match between these two, and not just one, because I think they're both very high level, and so it should give us a rather close game. Now, pardon my lack of observing there while I check through their descriptions and check through just my own YouTube record to see if they've played. Now, as far as the builds go, we already have quite a divergence here. Gonna be a Robo going up against a Stargate, negativeZero with the Robo, versus a Stargate for Deimos. Deimos does like to go for Phoenix. We've got two Adepts moving across the map for both these bots. They really are playing like true Protoss players, and it's going to be a bit of an Adept rush. It seems negativeZero is more focused on that defense, sending its Adepts home. However, than it shades, we do have a shield battery wall going up for negativeZero, whereas Deimos doesn't have that wall. However, it's got a good interception on that. And then we have got, yeah, the one Stalker trying to chase down the two Adepts, eating a few shots in the process of that. Meanwhile, the Adepts trying to make it into the main base of negativeZero. And it looks like we have got an Oracle on the way for Deimos behind this. So not just going into Phoenix or anything like that. negativeZero's Stalkers have had more effect as they actually did get in. Pardon me, the Adepts had more effect as they actually did get into the main base, whereas negativeZero just says, nope, let that battery finish. No one is getting in here. And so that has been quite a nice disruption inside the main base of Deimos. Yet despite that, Deimos actually has a nice worker lead. It looks like it had, was that a starting pylon or nexus that it then canceled? I think I just caught the shimmer of that. Must have been a canceled nexus by Deimos, I want to say, but we do have a Robo now on the way for Deimos, despite going for that early Stargate. The Adept of negativeZero is just being such a nuisance. Even bots have a hard time responding to bot shenanigans, as a bot will never, like, units in StarCraft 2, they're easier to run away with than they are to catch. Usually just units die because, well, they stop getting microed, but bots don't ever get tired of that. We have negativeZero now killing off its own battery so it can get out of its base. However, these Adepts do shade through when there's a hole in the door, which is very unfortunate, as now negativeZero has to contend with 3 Adepts inside its main base, and oh no, its own pylon is blocking itself. Or, pardon me, not a pylon, a shield battery, but the result is the same. One Immortal did pop out to chase these Adepts away. That is still massive damage getting done. negativeZero has a battery in its mineral line. Not all the probes are hiding. by that battery, though. This Adept is still throwing frisbees, killing probes. A Stalker has been produced to get to work on this Oracle. That is massive damage that has been done to the red Protoss bot, though. So while things started out a little bit better for negativeZero, Deimos definitely got the last laugh, being persistent with those Adepts. negativeZero killing off its own battery, opening the doors to that Terror. Now, there is still potential for something to get done by negativeZero. It's got a whopping 3 Immortals against a mainly Stalker army of Deimos. Deimos is firing up its own Immortal. Still, though, it's going to have to try and defend this Nexus, and this is the beauty of negativeZero and Deimos. They're both getting aggressive, meeting each other out on the map. Stalkers do catch and kill the Oracle of Deimos, so negativeZero doesn't have to worry about that anymore. If bots could worry, we have got Deimos showing us its very cool micro as the Stalkers try and avoid the Immortals. One did get caught and killed, though. And the defense is still going to have to be mustered here for Deimos. negativeZero seems to be a little bit more grouped on up, though, as it comes on in. 2 Immortals, 3 Stalkers against 1 Immortal, 5 Stalkers by my count. However, Deimos seems to be afraid to take the engagement against this. So far, though, it is buying time as this 1 Immortal chases this 1 Stalker forever. This is what I mean about it being hard to catch Starcraft units if they're just microed indefinitely. Now the 2 Immortals are pushing in for negativeZero. They've taken quite a bit of a beating, though, and it looks like they both will go down, so the defense of Deimos seems to be good enough, and negativeZero is in a spot of bother. That would have been that really was a position which it needed to get some counter damage done, and it did not happen. The red Protoss bot is at least building up its worker count again after those devastating 13 probe losses. It's still an incredibly tough position to be in, and now Deimos is moving across the map, potentially looking to take the first game in this best of 3. negativeZero may be able to hold on, however, its long-term prospects are going to be very, very bleak, and Adept is going to try and shade by these Stalkers. Looks like it cancels that shade. This Immortal has got a lot of work to do for negativeZero right now. The micro of Deimos is good as always. Those Stalkers just pulling back if they're not shooting to get maximum efficiency. And look at this, yeah, negativeZero tries to move forward with its Immortal, but the Stalkers are just pulling away, and it does seem there's simply too much Protoss from Deimos. A Prism is about to pop out that could potentially help juggle these units a little bit. There's a Sentry, but the Pylon's going down, the Gateways are going down, the Cyber Core may also go down. negativeZero there's just no coming back from this one. The math ain't mathing unless Deimos crashes out, basically. And so it looks like Deimos is going to take game number 1 in this best of 3. And yeah, I'll just fast forward to the end at this point, as negativeZero, it can't take the fight, but then it also can't mine. And it's just doing what makes sense to it. Now, 1 Immortal is being a fighter, trying to hold the line. The probes are buffering for it. But still, there's just no coming back from this one. Well done by Deimos. Really, that Oracle and Adept harassment did put it in a winning position. I'm going to go ahead and load us into the next match. All right, and here we are, ladies and gentlemen, into our next match. negativeZero taking on Deimos in what is crazy PvP. I think it really does highlight how entertaining both these bots are to watch, just with the fact that they're meeting in the middle of the map, having engagements, both of them trying to harass each other. It really makes for a good spectacle. And yeah, we're going to see if this match is any different here on Abyssal Reef. Really cool behavior from negativeZero, walling to keep the Adepts out of its base. I think that's absolutely the right idea. Unfortunately, it wasn't really... It broke down that battery when there was still Adepts pressuring it. But I mean, at some point you do have to break down that battery. So it definitely not an easy thing to program, that's for sure. Like, human players, if you play Protoss at all in Starcraft 2, ever since Legacy of the Void and Adepts became the standard opener, you had to go for those walls to block the Adept shades. Otherwise, you'd just lose all your workers. But there's a lot of technicality into it, like keeping track of how many Adepts you've killed, whether there's still Adepts outside of your base, when you want to cancel and build those pylons. Because as a bot, if you've got, well, it's almost more difficult as playing against a bot, because, for example, Deimos the entire game and was trying to get Adepts into the base of -0 until eventually that persistence paid off. So those bots, they will keep trying and trying unless you clean up those units, which of course is not an easy thing to program your bot to do. Bots are not as good at being decisive and killing off units as human players are. So yeah, let's see if it's going to be any different in this one. We do have double Adepts coming out from both sides, so not too surprising that the players are sticking to this. Double Adept is a very good opening in Starcraft 2. We'll just have to see if -0 potentially has better timing with the battery, that kind of thing. Maybe it will have more success harassing Deimos, who knows? It doesn't look like Deimos has behavior to build a pylon in its wall, though. It just defended with its own units. And we do have a Stargate on the way for Deimos. Meanwhile, -0 is going for that Robo once again. Deimos, notably, does like to long-distance mine with its probes, so maybe it gets a slight advantage with that. And it does keep making probes, whereas -0 seems to cut them at a certain point in the match. We do have Chrono Boost available for -0, whereas Deimos has been utilizing its own, trying to get out that warp gate as quick as possible. Now we're seeing Adepts come on into -0's base. There's that shield battery wall going up. A Stalker pops out for -0 to try and deal with this, starts shooting at the Adepts, but it takes ages to kill the Adepts. Meanwhile, -0 is tossing out its own shades, being chased down by an Adept and a Stalker of Deimos. However, one of those Adepts will shade to the natural base. That could get some nice denied mining. Meanwhile, the other one is running around. Adepts shading all over the place. This is really hard to keep track of, guys, but yeah, looks like Deimos doesn't poke on in with the injured unit. It's just poking in with the unit that has got some HP to burn, which is very cool to see. And things are actually looking eerily similar to the other match. 3 Adepts, however, one of them goes down, so it's actually only 2 present now for Deimos. -0 still producing Stalkers, trying to keep those Adepts out of its base, still shading around with its own. Looks like one almost shades to the main base, but then does cancel the shade for some reason. All in all, very similar. 1 Adept to 3 probes. Meanwhile, -0 is still blocked inside its main base by that battery, getting the odd shot off on the Adept of Deimos. We'll see if it eats any more shots and potentially goes down to change things up or not. We do have a battery building once more for -0. The Oracle actually flew into the main base, pardon me, but that was repulsed and didn't actually get anything done. Just flying on in, getting pushed on out. I'm really focusing on these Adepts, trying to tell whether they're going to get anything done or not this match. There's 2 shades being tossed on out. -0 does pursue the shades, which is very cool programming. Stalkers are coming in en masse. Probes run away, hiding by the battery. It looks like the Stalkers are prioritizing the Oracle. Now they got to deal with those 2 Adepts, which are trying to target down some probes. So far, not too many kills, though. -0 is definitely behind on workers, though. That is simply a fact of the matter. It hasn't been producing as many as Deimos. Deimos is long-distance mining and making use of those extra probes. Not necessarily the most efficient use, but kind of justifies producing those a little bit more. Probes do run by the shield battery, and so that saves a few of them. Stalkers will kill the Oracle as well. All in all, though, Deimos does seem to have a nice start once more, simply just based off the fact that it's produced way more workers than its opponent. It's in total in this game, Deimos has produced 8 more workers than -0. So that is simply why it's got, well, 9 more workers. So that's quite significant. We are seeing -0 try and push on in towards Deimos once again. This ramp could be a factor as Deimos is actually counter-pushing down the ramp. That will definitely favor -0 in this fight. A few Stalkers do get picked off. It's really going to depend whether -0 goes up the ramp or whether Deimos goes down it, whether -0 will have success. Looks like Deimos' answer is actually just to go around, which is very cool pathing. The fact that it's programmed to do that, to try and find a bit of a better angle. Now, looks like Deimos still producing another Immortal, so the current count is 3-2. There is 2 Zealots in the composition for -0. I'm not sure where they are. I believe they're just walking across the map. Meanwhile, Deimos is getting behind the army of negativeZero. Two Immortals are chasing one on the right. Stalker allows that to be picked off. negativeZero has now made it up the ramp and is pushing into the main base of Deimos once again, similar to the previous match. Meanwhile, Deimos is out on the map with its 4 Stalkers and Immortal. negativeZero is pulling some units back to try and engage that. It really is just wacky engagements all over the place as one Stalker gets killed by 2 just way out on the map. These 2 Immortals are shooting down a gateway of Deimos that could potentially make it start to float a little bit of money. So negativeZero, its units aren't dying as quickly as they did in the previous match. And Adept is also going to shade behind this mineral line. 2 Stalkers chasing down 1. For some reason, the 2 Immortals are a little bit afraid to go on in. But now Deimos is losing a lot of mining time due to the presence of these 2 Stalkers and the Adept. And Deimos is really being bullied here. The Immortal can definitely do some damage to the Stalkers. Probes may have to get pulled into the fight. Meanwhile, Deimos having to bring back the rest of its units to try and clean this up. That is going to be a lot of lost workers and a lot of lost mining time for the blue Protoss bot. So negativeZero has much more success there, while Deimos is playing with its Stalkers and Immortals out on the map, just sort of skirmishing. And yeah, the amount of mining time that was lost for Deimos really, really hurt it there, giving negativeZero a worker lead for the first time in this series. We've now got Blink on the way for the red Protoss bot. These 2 bots are still fairly even in supply. They were actually dead even. A few more workers for negativeZero, whereas Deimos has got the bigger armor presently. negativeZero is going to have Blink finishing up, which could definitely help it out. There's also a Prism done. Now, the problem for negativeZero is that it doesn't have any more Immortals. It has not produced another one. Investing in Blink is rather expensive. It's invested in a Prism. Neither of those things which are Immortals. negativeZero tries to go for another Nexus. Looks like it abandons that attempt and actually does fire up another Immortal. Still though, Deimos is pushing on in, taking care of those Zealots, which did buffer quite a few shots. But now Deimos is continuing to poke. We'll see whether it can breach the ramp or not. There is a sentry. We could see a force field get tossed down by negativeZero. Deimos is trying to push up this ramp, though. I'm not sure there's enough firepower for the red Protoss bot. That Immortal is being produced, which could definitely help on out. Deimos is trying to go up this ramp. The Zealot is doing a good job buffering for the red Protoss. Stalkers are getting some shots off. Resources lost in this game is very even, just 5,200 to 4,950. So just absolutely neck and neck. The Immortal popping out for negativeZero does seem to change its fortune. I mean, Blink is kind of keeping some of these Stalkers alive, it seems. But there's just simply so few units. They don't really have anything else to hide behind. The 1 Immortal of Deimos is rather injured, staying alive, pulling it back for now. negativeZero is poking out. We'll see which Immortal shoots which first. And yeah, Deimos does seem to be losing most of its units as it is being pushed back. Looks like this Immortal will go down. Stalker blinks into it. Deimos does stutter step with that Immortal, kills off an Adept, but does end up getting pushed away. Both these Protoss bots are on just 1 base right now. They're really mining out, and negativeZero has got, well, it's got fewer workers, but Deimos is just oversaturated horribly on 1 base, as it seems to have abandoned the long-distance mining it was doing earlier. negativeZero is now firing up a natural Nexus base. Charge is about to finish up as well. That will help out if more Zealots are produced. Still, though, 1 Immortal versus 1 Immortal and 2 Stalkers. There's a Sentry to back up the red Immortal, but that goes down. The Prism did not evacuate it for some reason. And now the unit count of negativeZero is just so darn low. It's produced a Phoenix, interestingly enough, which isn't really doing anything. However, basically it seems the army value difference here is partly due to this Nexus that negativeZero invested in. Now, if negativeZero can stay alive to reap the rewards of this Nexus, that will be huge. However, if not, it may simply just lose this match. And then Deimos will have successfully taken the 2-0. That's looking fairly likely right now, as there's simply too few units for negativeZero. It's seemingly saving up money to build another Immortal, and there we see it. An Immortal does get started. There is a Chrono Boost being dumped into that Robo, which is very good to see. That Immortal needs to get out here yesterday. Looks like the Nexus will be canceled, which is massively painful. negativeZero instantly spends that money on more units, though, which can definitely help out, keeping in mind that that single Zealot has charged. The 2 Stalkers have blinked. The Immortal is about to pop out. Can negativeZero pull a rabbit out of its hat with this engagement? There is a battery as well, which can help out tremendously. negativeZero feeling confident, moving forward. The Zealot charges on in. Stalkers are getting healed up by that battery, and the Zealots and Stalkers and Immortals are able to pick off one of the Immortals of Deimos. This match is actually very close. Looks like one of the Immortals, the other Immortal of Deimos, does get cornered and killed, leaving negativeZero being the only Protoss with an Immortal at this stage in the match. Actually, as I say that, Deimos has another Immortal come across the map to reinforce this, and that is a full HP Immortal. A Zealot is going to charge on in, doing a great job buffering, allowing negativeZero to get some shots off on the Immortal of Deimos. Still, though, the unit count is pitiful on both sides. I wish negativeZero would spend some of its gas on some sentries right now, as minerals are the main bottleneck for both these Protoss bots. Deimos not long distance mining at all, which is unfortunate. Looks like it does lose that new Immortal it brought forward. However, now negativeZero's Immortal is kind of backed into a corner. It can't get up that ramp. It does manage to bully its way out and get up that ramp, which is important. That battery, that barrier overcharge is actually going to potentially come off cooldown, which would be huge, but the Immortal does go down, and Deimos comes forward with yet another of its own Immortals. As we see right now, negativeZero is saving up money to build seemingly another Immortal of its own, but it's just building up money so darn slowly. What did it just spend money on? There we go. That Immortal does start getting produced. Looks like probes are starting to perish, though. That battery goes down, and I think Deimos may have taken it. Unfortunately, the Phoenix just being an idle spectator. As I say that, though, this other Immortal is being produced. Neither bot has expanded yet, so it's not like negativeZero needs all these probes, but it does seem to be losing a few too many, and unless this Immortal can make a miracle happen, I think that that is probably going to be it for the red Protoss bot. Here comes out the Immortal, but I'm not sure one Immortal can take on all these Stalkers, as, yeah, negativeZero, it's just lost all of its probes down to one final probe, one Stalker, and the Prism. The Prism really didn't help out at all. No juggling of the units at all. And this really was a low tank, low gas in the tank climax to this game. Just barely limping over that finish line, but Deimos was able to take it 2-0. A really close match, though. Only 2 mineral patches left. No long distance mining, which is odd. I'm guessing that's because negativeZero did get aggressive at some point, so Deimos hasn't decided to do that once more. But it was able to take that match. Incredibly close. A really great match between these two. And so, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this one, go ahead, click that like button already. We'll update that score as Deimos does take it 2-0. I'm kind of curious if Deimos will start to long distance mine or not. We may not see that, though, as it is going to kill the last of the buildings rather quickly here. And so we'll never know, but well done to Deimos. GG. If you guys want to see more best of 3s between some of these bots, let me know in the comments down below. Say more bots. Leave a like, join the Discord, which is linked down below. And if you do want to support the channel, consider becoming a YouTube member. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much for tuning in.